Welcome back, everybody. We're finally going to talk about Uncharted 3. Remember when I was talking about the Uncharted videos? Yeah, me neither. To be honest, it's kind of because after putting out the second Uncharted video not too long after the first, I just kind of didn't really know what I wanted to say about the third game. I just didn't want to sound repetitive, and I just couldn't get into the mindset of writing a script for it. But it's been a while. I finally went back and played Uncharted 3, so let's just dive right into it, shall we? So after the success of Uncharted 2, Naughty Dog obviously decided to release a third game. I mean, all good things come in a trilogy, right? And I mean, come on, they still had plenty of room to improve, and Nathan Drake definitely still had some left in him when it came to story, which is where this game starts off. After a little opening tutorial that introduces the new fist fighting mechanics in the game, Nathan and Sully just get fucking shot in an alleyway and we're transported into a flashback. And to be honest, the opening flashback actually works really well. It's very short, it gives you all the info you need, and playing as young Drake is kind of cool, getting to see him and Sully, how they met, and eventually how they became partners in crime. But hey, we're not going to play this whole game as a kid, right? Turns out that guy that shot us was actually working for us against Marlo, that evil girl that we saw both in the flashback and also in the alley before we died, quote unquote. We also meet back up with Chloe, and together we all decide to investigate Marlo and see what they're looking for. We find a secret entrance to one of their bases, we find what they're looking for, and we barely make it out with our own lives. But hey, now we have a story, right? Kinda? It's honestly not as good as Uncharted 2's in my opinion, but this one works okay. I mean, it's kind of just the standard, oh, Nathan Drake is getting himself into another predicament, let's just see how this eventually spins into a self-fulfilling cycle of destruction, but that's what I'm here for, man. So together with our group of us, Sully, second best girl, and our new friend Cutter, and then cue the usual Uncharted antics. Things get weird, we get way over our heads, everything is exploding, all around, good stuff. The only problem is this is exactly what we've seen before. Now I get it. Obviously we can't have a story where everything just goes right. You know, we find the treasure, or, we just give Talbot the ring in the beginning. I get that. But unfortunately, they also don't really offer much else new to the table in Uncharted 3. Plus, Talbot and Marlo just aren't as interesting as Lazarevich was. I think they wanted this sense of mystery around Marlo and Talbot as they're linked to some sort of secret society pulling the strings behind everything, but I think it honestly just makes them less interesting. Yes, Lazarevich was incredibly simple. He was just a mercenary who wanted to find Shambhala. But because of that simplicity, it's really easy to grasp his character immediately and then find out more through the cutscenes. I can tell you what Lazarevich wanted, but with Marlo and Talbot, I don't really know what they want. And besides the fact that Marlo was at one point associated with Sully, we don't really know anything about her. Her backstory, motivations, I can't really tell you any of it. And with Talbot, we know even less. They get the job done, sure, but God, I would take a simple villain any day. I mean, Uncharted 3 even has a perfect example of this. In Ramses, he's literally only in the game for like 3 chapters, but I can tell you way more about him than Talbot or Marlo. He's just a pirate who wants a piece of that treasure, and the banter he has with Drake is way more compelling than Marlo's empty threats. Now, for the other new character, we also get Cutter, who I do think is a great fit. He has good chemistry with the rest of the cast, he has plenty of great dialogue, he provides info about the treasure we're seeking. Overall, I'd say a great addition. Except that he's not in it for very long. He gets injured at one point and unfortunately has to stop adventuring with us. It is disappointing, as I really wanted more of him, but Cutter's exit is important as he tells Drake to carry on it without him, which kind of feeds into Drake's whole revenge story, which Chloe and Sully don't really agree is the best decision and are trying to convince Drake, maybe it's all not worth it. Maybe they should just let Talbot and Marlowe just get away with this one. Speaking of Chloe, she also does leave when Cutter does, but her reasoning also makes sense. We're in way over our heads, but come on, that's kind of what Drake is known for, Chloe. You kind of should have seen this coming. Plus, with 2 slots now open, that means we get to have Best Girl back. Besides just the characters, all the new settings are also well done, from the beautifully detailed remains of hidden chateaus to sneaking around museums, and eventually getting dropped into the desert out of a plane. The set pieces from Uncharted 2 are back, and they've only gotten bigger. You're just getting messed up left and right. But here, they don't give my man Nathan any room to breathe. So luckily for us, we got some gameplay improvements to help us on our journey. Remember how I said in Uncharted 2 they were able to improve pretty much everything from the first game? Well, those sons of bitches over at Naughty Dog managed to do it again. The movement is smoother, gunplay sharper, there's just more guns overall, more enemies. They even redid the melee combat, which makes it actually useful occasionally, and it's even required for some battles. Wait a minute. Boss battles? In Uncharted? These always go perfectly. There are a couple scripted hand-to-hand fights like this one with Cutter, and besides using it as an opportunity to show off my schmovement, it's not really that hard, but honestly, the weight of the new melee mechanics does make it feel really satisfying. Besides that, the usual third-person gameplay works well. Again, it's not anything game-changing, but it's serviceable. And I think the main problem with these games has always been weapon variety. There are different kinds of weapons, sure, but most enemies you find are just going to have your basic assault rifles or pistols. So when you do occasionally find other weapons, you get like no ammo for it, so you'll barely get to use it anyway. There are a couple situations in this game where you're forced into using certain weapons, and I honestly think that's what this series needs more of. Scenarios like this, especially on higher difficulties, having to scramble between cover, running out of ammo, and picking up whatever you can get your hands on, being forced to maybe use stuff you're not comfortable with, that can get intense, but it just doesn't happen as much as it should. The climbing and basic movement also feels faster, which is also really nice, and definitely helps during the set piece sections, which may honestly be the best part of Uncharted 3. We already touched on the plane jump, but there's also stuff from the cruise ship, the chateau, the cities, the museums. They're probably the most memorable part of this game for me. Overall, Uncharted 3 is a great sequel. Not as good as 2 in my opinion, mostly just because of the story. I will say I do think I probably like the gameplay just a bit better in Uncharted 3, but overall, Uncharted 2's stories and characters are just a lot more memorable. Like, even though I played Uncharted 2 several months ago and Uncharted 3 only like a week or 2 ago, I can tell you way more about what happens in Uncharted 2, from characters, important plot points, the villain. I can tell you like all of that, all of what we were searching for, Shambhala. Uncharted 3, hell, I barely remember. It wasn't even until I was going through doing the script for this video that I even remembered what we were actually searching for and being like, oh yeah, T.E. Lawrence, he has something to do with this. But overall, Uncharted 3, it's still a great and a beautiful way to end the story of Nathan Drake. Until they made the 4th game.